This episode is brought to you by the letter D. Love is quite possibly the greatest gift that life has to offer. I personally rank it a notch or two above Hawaiian pizza and 3-day weekends. It's a feeling that can make people do crazy things, and I'm speaking from personal experience. You might introduce yourself to a stranger, go to parties, spend all your money, and get new crushes, but it all leads down the same path. If you're thinking that something as great as that must be hard to get, you'd be half right. It's all about taking your first step into the world of dating. I was admittedly a bit of a late bloomer when it came to dating. I can't remember which one of my friends started dating first, but I do remember back in middle school seeing them holding hands with some girl in the hallway. From that point on, I was determined to hold hands with a girl too. Fast forward to my 8th grade science class. We had a few minutes before the teacher would walk in, so I wanted to get a head start, so I took out my textbook. At the same time, most of the girls in the class also took out a book, but it definitely wasn't a textbook. The girls in my class were hooked on the fantasy young adult novel trend, and there was one book series in particular that had the spotlight, Barry Potter. It was a 7-book series about a magic boy who goes to a magic boarding school and fights evil magic people. Honestly, I didn't get the hype, but these girls were talking about parts of the book as if they were talking about concerts or parades. One girl brought up a particular moment which no one had anything to say about. Apparently it was from the final book, which no one else in the class had gone to yet. I looked up from my textbook to see who had said it, and it was the cutest girl in my grade. We'll call her Jenna. And then the teacher walked in and class began. While everyone else was talking about chemicals and atoms, I was thinking about how I would win Jenna over. When class finished, I ran straight to the library. I checked out every single Barry Potter book. My plan was to finish the whole series over the weekend. That way I'd be the only other person in class on Monday who finished the last book, and Jenna would have to talk to me. So I did that. It took me the entire weekend, but I finished all 7 books. I made sure to get to class early and leave a copy of the last book on top of my desk. And my plan worked. At least it did at first. We talked about magic and wands for a while. Before class ended, I asked Jenna if she wanted to eat lunch with me. I got hit with a curveball.
Oh, sorry, Ono. I had to eat lunch with my boyfriend.
Oh, I didn't know you had one.
Yeah, he just moved here. He's so cool.
I walked away, feeling a little disappointed. But then Jenna stopped me.
I don't want you to eat alone. You can eat at our table if you want.
I don't know if I would want a third wheel with y'all.
Oh, you won't. My friend Jessie will be there too.
On one side of the table, Jenna and her boyfriend were making goo-goo eyes at each other, and I was on the other side of the table trying to pretend that Jenna's friend wasn't sitting next to me. So your name is Jessie?
Yeah.
So what do you like to do?
I'm bored. Do you want to listen to my music outside?
Yes, please. It's better than what we're doing now. We sat down on a patch of grass outside, and then Jessie handed me one of her earbuds. She started playing some emotional, screamo punk music. I had never listened to this type of music before, but the lyrics spoke to the teen angst and frustration that I could relate to. We listened to music together for the rest of lunch. When the bell rang, I smiled and said, "We should do this again sometime." And she smiled back and said, "Definitely." My stomach started feeling fuzzy. For the next 2 weeks, Jessie would introduce me to new music. I spent so much time around her that I started to copy her style. I grew my hair out, but I couldn't lay it flat, so I just had an Asian afro. And I would only wear all black band t-shirts. Jessie and I had so much in common. We liked the same foods, we watched the same shows, and we'd even compliment our friends the same way. I'd be like, "Aw, that dress looks nice on her." And she'd be like, "Yeah, that dress fits her really well." After spending so much time together, I knew I had something important to ask her. "Do you want to be my girlfriend?" "I'd love to," she said as she reached out to hold my hand. We were around each other even more after that, Our hands were practically glued together. Walking to class, eating lunch, going to football games, I always had Jessie right next to me. One of the best parts of my relationship were the looks of envy I got from my single friends. We had a swap. Now I had a hand to hold, and they were the jealous ones. It was a nice, fuzzy feeling, at least while it lasted. I really liked Jessie, and she liked me, but I could tell that something was off. After about a month of hanging out, things began to change. We would still be together all the time, but Jessie's focus was always somewhere else. I just couldn't figure out where. One day after school, I started walking towards the football field to get seats for the game, and Jessie walked in the opposite direction. I asked her where she was going, and she said her mom was picking her up. I was suspicious, but there wasn't really anything I could do about it. I watched the game with my friends instead. The other team scored 1,000,000 points on us, and my school took a major L. That was a moment of foreshadowing for me. I couldn't find Jessie anywhere at school on Monday, and she didn't respond to any of my texts. After school, I was staring out the bus window on my way home, when suddenly, I got a text. I can't be your girlfriend anymore. When I finally got into my bedroom, I laid down on the floor and stared up at the ceiling fan while the fuzzy feeling in my stomach went away. And that is the soup. This episode is brought to you by the letter B. I got a call from some of my friends. Hey, we just have a bet we're trying to settle. What are you doing right now? Well, I just ate half a jar of chocolate-covered almonds, and I'm about to start on the second half. Oh, I'm surprised you're not with your, girlfriend right now. Yeah, well, I don't have one anymore. Dude, we're on our way right now. Well, that was a little insensitive, but I thought the company would be good for me. About 10 minutes later, a handful of my friends showed up at my house on their skateboards, and they said to follow them. When we got to our stop, one of my friends got off his board and stood in front of a street lamp. They waited for the sun to be nearly set, and then another one of my friends said, "Show him the thing." My friend gave the street lamp a little nudge, and then suddenly that lamp and every other lamp nearby shut off. The street was nearly pitch black aside from the dim house lights. Welcome to Scoop Alley. So we had a bet going. I bet if you and your girl could last until Thanksgiving break, he would have to give me $20. So, why are we here then? He bet if y'all wouldn't last until the end of this week, one of us would have to go streaking down this street. Usually I would object to something as risky as this, but I wanted to do anything that would get my mind off my breakup. So I took off all my clothes and I threw them up in a tree, and I started sprinting up and down the street. It was such a free feeling. My friends saw the fun I was having and they decided to join me. We were running through Scoop Alley, shouting and being free. I guess we were feeling a little too free because someone who lives on Scoop Alley called the cops on us. There was no time to get changed once we heard the sirens. We were sprinting towards my house with our clothes in hand. At one point, we had to huddle behind a bush together to hide from a passing patrol car. We all got dressed in my backyard as soon as we knew the coast was clear. One by one, my friends started leaving for home, but my last friend turned around and said, "All joking aside, we were worried about you. I hope you're feeling better now." I was glad to have people in my life who could cheer me up better than 1,000,000 pounds of chocolate-covered almonds ever could. And that is the soup.